Well, hey, let's dive in. Let's dive into what Gerb said, because there's a lot.
I got it all up here. If you want,
got it.
Yeah,
if you want to share it, go right ahead. Yeah.
So there's a sequencing of this I'm going to go into. So the first thing that we need to talk about, because we have become one of the Winds of Winter people, right? Like we are looking for clues, and I've always said that being hopeful costs me nothing, and there's no reason not to be hopeful, right? Like it doesn't do me any good to be negative. However, Germ kind of put a big old bucket of water on the fire that's been going on recently, and he basically said he's meeting with his publishers because he's going to London. And what he wanted to say was, let me say a few words about that though. Last year, when I mentioned seeing my Voyager edition, our editors, in London, the internet went nuts, throwing up all sorts of theories about how it meant that the Winds of Winter was done and huge announcements were at hand. Sorry guys, but no. And then he goes on to explain that basically he meets with his publishers because they're his friends. Like he's been working with them for decades. And if he were to go to India or anywhere, he would meet with his publishers in that region because it means a lot to him. And he tries to have good face. That's just how business is done for him. Mm-hmm. So he says it doesn't signify anything actually, except a desire to touch base, catch up, renew old contacts, or make some new ones and enjoy a nice meal. So calm down, please. When Winds of Winter is done, the word will not trickle out. There will be a big announcement, and where and when I cannot say. Now, obviously, this kind of sucks, right? Because there's been a lot of speculation about it coming out. I think he's writing. I will say this, but here's the thing that I do find interesting about this post, and I'm not going to go on his big hopium rant or anything, but back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember this, an older blog post, he said, when Winds of Winter's done, there will be a blog post on this website that will say, I am done. Like he will announce it on his blog. He always used to say those words, but in this, he says it will be a big announcement where and when I cannot say. So now he's saying he's not saying it. He's not guaranteeing it's going to be on the blog, which I thought was interesting because that's always been his consistent messaging. And also not knowing where it will be. A lot of people thought Worldcon this year was going to be the big, when they announced the Hugo and stuff that Germ's going to announce, but it turns out that apparently Worldcon wouldn't give George like a panel or time on the stage. They ignored him. And he's going as a fan, essentially. Like he's buying a ticket, I think. And
I'll tell you,
no expo, nothing. And I think the last person to run Worldcon has passed away, and that was his friend or something along. I might be wrong about this, but essentially he reached out 3 different occasions, and he documents in the blog post. You can tell he's like kind of pissed. He's like, yeah, I guess screw me. I guess they don't want me there. So that was interesting and just in its own. But maybe he was planning on doing something at Worldcon, because now it's like when I do not know. I thought that was just kind of interesting. But I mean, I will say this. He's telling us point blank, and we have to believe him at his word. Him meeting with the publishers was not a signal of anything. So, well,
I think it was a signal of something, and I can pull it up. I think what he was referring to is the fact that, and this is why I'm actually super hyped. Yeah, there's the new editions. First of all, the artwork looks sick.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. But here's where I like to get the hype train rolling.
Come
on,
Jimmy. I think I might know where you're going. Can I guess?
Get the hype train going on. Okay. I got a couple things to say here, right?
Okay.
One, he said, hey, I can't go to London to be on the go to the writer's room, which, by the way, he could still zoom in to the writer's room.
I got a whole breakdown for it.
Yeah, you don't have to actually, whatever. You can zoom in. It's easy. We have technology these days. I mean, I know he likes to go to cabin in the woods and do his thing. But why would you, which, by the way, let me pull these back up. I think they look freaking sick. I love the artwork for this, right?
Yeah, I'll be buying them like an idiot because I already own
them. I will too, because I actually don't even own a physical set. But I need one. So
I have 6 copies of Game of Thrones, so that'll be my 7th. I have a problem.
But if you're making all this new artwork, right? Because maybe the cover that you've chosen, remember last year there was like a cover was released that was like a mock-up cover, but it was by someone who has done artwork for George in the past, like on the calendars or something. I can't remember where exactly he's worked for, but he's done official artwork, and everybody thought, "Ooh, this is going to be the cover," and it's like the dragon glass spear tip, right? So, because for the longest time, everybody's used a cover, which is not a real cover, by the way, of the horn. Mm-hmm. It's just, it looks like those covers we've seen for years, right? With the dagger and the crown and stuff. But the fact that there's these new covers to me indicates, hey, maybe I've chosen a cover for the Winds of Winter and it looks in this art style, and that's the cover I want to go for. So we should release versions of all of the books that look like they go with these covers. Okay. And now you're saying that he is saying, oh, I said for years I'm going to do it on my blog post saying it's done. But now he's saying, maybe I'm not going to do my blog post. Maybe I'm going to do it somewhere else. And he thought it was going to be Worldcon, and now it's not. I got a great place to tell you to do it. How about at the freaking Emmys? When House of the Dragon wins Best Series, George goes up and is like, "Oh yeah, by the way,
oh my
it's
God.
done."
That would be.
I mean,
that
you
would
get
be,
bigger than that.
That would actually be insane.
Because I mean, let's just go ahead and say it. The show that I thought was going to challenge Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon for best drama was going to be The Bear, but I don't know. I just finished it. I don't think it's going to win it this year. The Bear. A lot of people are kind of down on The Bear this year for what would potentially be like best drama. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched anything else that I think is going to even come close to challenging House of the Dragon this year.
All right, Matt. If you want me to give you guys some hopium, I'll give you some hopium. So you
inject it.
Listen,
just get it.
Open
I'm gonna get the belt out
veins.
because Jimmy's got some freaking drugs coming right to the veins here. Okay?
Juice. The cream rises to the top. Oh yeah. All right, so check us out. The last time they released a box set of Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire was 2011, and there was only 4 books in it. And then directly following that, A Dance with Dragons came out with the same kind of cover type, and then they slammed it into the box set. So all I'm saying is the last time we saw a box set release, it was imminent that a new one was coming. I don't listen. We'll try.
That's likely. I think it's freaking likely. That's likely. Come on. What are you gonna do? Say, oh yeah, I'm drop my new book and I'm gonna go ahead and use the same cover from what? Oh, let's remind people 13 years ago. You know what I mean? Like instead, let's go ahead and like forget it was 13 years and let's go ahead and make
right,
some new
because a lot of the covers people have been buying, by the way, have been the newer Game of Thrones covers, the covers that tie into the book. Say like HBO, and it's got like there's like the Dance of Dragons is no longer like the silver with like the coin. It's like Tyrion and like standing on the boat, right? It's more of the Game of Thrones one, like the Game of I think the actual that's the Dance of Dragons, but it ties into the show Game of Thrones. And then I think the actual Game of Thrones book is like the White Walker's face, isn't it?
Something like that. I can't
something like that. Yeah, but those are the Game of Thrones version cover books. At least what we get here in North America is because the rest of the world is different.
Yeah. So one of the things, that kind of makes people feel good about this is that George is being absurdly active on his blog. Like we haven't seen him write this much in multiple posts in a week.
Yeah, sometimes it's like we get one a month.
Yeah, or sometimes it's a couple months. He went through that really bad depressive episode in January. We were all kind of like worried about him. But even whenever Game of Thrones went on, I went back and looked. He wasn't posting this much. Like it is actually crazy how much he's posting. In that posting, and this will all transition to some of the people are wondering how George feels about the show. Now, I want to preface this with he's given a ton of praise. I think he enjoys House of the Dragon. But like anyone, he's going to have likes and dislikes. And I think as the creator of this thing, I think maybe he feels certain ways whenever he sees things changed. So this is going back into July 5th of the Blood and Cheese post. He said, hey, a lot of people who watched the show only thought it was crazy. Book readers may feel differently. And then he said, well, there's a lot to be said about that, but this is not the place for me to say it. The issues are too complicated. Somewhere down the line, I will do a separate post about all the issues raised by Blood and Cheese. And Maelor the Missing, there's a lot to say. And people are saying that he's kind of upset with the Helena choice change. And I will say this, I do think it has kind of a pessimistic tone to it, but maybe I'm reading that in. And then following up, Matt kind of alluded to this earlier. George actually put in his recent blog where he's talking about where all the places he's going. He said, the writer's room for House of the Dragon season 3 is also meeting in London, but I have no plans to attend. Now, before I get too negative, I just want to say they might be meeting for dinner. They might be meeting to go over things. We know for a fact that the writers sat down for season 2 and 3, and he was there whenever they were doing the initial writings of like planning things out, how it's going to go, like the timelines and stuff.
Yeah.
So he has done work on season 3. This might simply be like a revision meeting or something, or it could be anything.
Right.
The only thing that's a little bit weird about this, and I want to see what you guys feel like, why did he mention it then? Like, does it not kind of give off the thing like he wanted us to know he's not attending? Like maybe he's a little bit displeased.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The fact that he mentioned you mentioned that he was upset about a Maelor choice, right?
Maelor the Missing. Yeah, the extra
missing.
son.
Yeah. Well, first of all, go check out the Patreon episode where we talk about why that could be actually super significant. And that might be why, because there may be things that he planned on doing with these minor characters that he's going to reveal in these other books. Like, people forget that some of this lore, all of this lore trickles into his final 2 books. And he has the knowledge of thinking, well, it's not going to make sense. And he's really thinking at it from this lens of, I'm a writer, I've got to finish this series, and it'd be cool to kind of see this here, and it would make this connection. He may know that something is significant and may not. I wonder if you would imagine he would tell them why that would be significant, why I need that character in there. But I feel like that might have been some of the frustration with, he only gave bits and pieces. He felt very troubled that he had to give up not troubled, but he had to give up Hodor. The Hodor moment he had to give up to the show before he could reveal it in the book, right? And I feel like he's lost a few of those things that he can reveal. And so maybe he said, look, this just needs to be there. Why, George? Well, I can't tell you why. I'm not going to tell you why, because it's going to steal thunder from my book. But I don't know. I mean, that is odd that he went ahead and said that, though, that he went ahead and said, hey, I'm not going to be there.
It's because he says he wants to be in London. He's going to be in London because they want to go see a place where the Iron Throne, right, which is the play, the Harrenhal thing they're leading to. By the way, he does end this by saying the dream, right, which dream is interesting, because Dream of Spring is to open somewhere on London's West End in 2025, but there's still a lot of work to do, which is what he always says when he's talking about Winds of Winter. Now, if you were to open a play, wouldn't you be on a stage?
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, bro.
Gonna announce it.
We're in Mayday mode over here. We're cooked. We're so cooked.
Jeez. Dude, Jimmy, I'm so cooked that, like, when he said the when and the where, I was like, winds of winter.
Oh no!
I was freaking out. I was like, oh shoot, is he coding a message in this thing? When and where? Winds of winter.
Well, he did do a couple wows in a row with winky faces and a blue rose, God. And it's like, you know what, George? If you don't want us to speculate online, don't do this stuff. Come on, you gotta be. He didn't dispel any of that, by the way. He only dispelled the publishers. So
exactly,
fair, we don't have.
Yeah, okay.
Not all hope is gone. It's not forlorn. But the one thing that makes this interesting is I think it's pretty clear he's a little upset with Blood and Cheese and maybe Maelor being gone. And then he says he's not attending the writer's room. And then today he makes this big post about dragons. And actually, if you're a fantasy fan, you need to go read this. It is really interesting to see into the mind of one of the most prominent authors of all time in the genre. He has tons of references to other works, obviously Lord of the Rings being the main one. And he's talking about canon. And he's saying that, his dragons do these specific things. He got very upset because at the late stages of Game of Thrones television show, they actually changed the Targaryen symbol to 4-legged dragons instead of 2. And in House of the Dragon, he is saying that they decided to use the 4-legged dragons instead of the 2-legged dragons. And this obviously has pissed him off a little bit. Like, he is not pleased. I think it's kind of silly. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but like, he seems upset by it. And he goes on to talk about like the roaming dragons in the world. And it's kind of saying, maybe some of the wandering dragons or the nomadic dragons in the show are not exactly how he wrote the dragons to be. And at the end of it all, he kind of explains what his dragons would do. And they wouldn't just be randomly flying without riders, and they wouldn't be just like walking around the Stormlands. And he says, fantasy needs to be grounded. It is not simply a license to do anything you like. Smaug and Toothless, Dragon's Mother series, may both be dragons, but they should never be confused. Ignore canon, and the world you've created comes apart like tissue paper. And I don't know. This feels, and you remember this, Matt, a couple blog posts back. This is a while back now, but he was talking about how like adaptations are never as good as the books, and it's because they mess with the canon and stuff. And like, we all thought he was talking about season 8 and a lot of the stuff that's happened with other adaptations of people he loved, like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time and obviously Tolkien and the Rings of Power or whatever. Is there a chance that he was also talking about House of the Dragon there? Like, I don't think we can rule it out. Now, with that said, again, he has praised the show endlessly as well. But I think that there's some clear,
he even praises the show at the beginning of this blog post.
He does, and I think I think he has a ton of respect for the actors, like all the people who go in and do this work and make this world come alive. I think he has a ton of respect for that because he worked in television. But I feel like creatively, he might be a little bit pissed off with them changing lore things. And I think you're right. I think it has to do with him saying, well, I was setting this up and this up. And now, the books are going to contradict this, or maybe Dunk and Egg show, we were planning on doing this and now we can't do it. Or maybe he had an idea for Robert's Rebellion or whatever else,
Right. Well,
but there
it looks
seems to be tension.
Yeah, it looks like in that post you're just referencing, I pulled it up here. It says, like my dragons do not talk. They're relatively intelligent, but they're still beast. And right here's an important line. They bond with men, some men, and why and how. So the why and the how of that that will be eventually coming out in more details in Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring. So,
and that is the biggest thing about this post, because he has said the dragon bond in Fire and Blood, the Maesters say anyone who claims to know how a dragon's bond works is a fool. And we've always used that as a way of like saying, guys, this isn't something we need to worry about. But George is telling you right here that it matters, and he's going to explain it. Yeah. He's going to explain how it works, and he also hints that the Maester may not have.
Does that mean John's going to ride a dragon in Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring?
I think it might, or Tyrion, because remember Tyrion has the dream of riding a dragon and burning Casterly Rock, and we've all said that, like, well, how does Tyrion get on a dragon if he's not a secret Targaryen? Because we don't really buy into that. But this is saying that the bond is going to be explained. And now maybe there's a chance that the show is messing with that. And that might be what he's specifically
taking him off about.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think it's cool. You know what? We don't.
I think it's cool too.
Here's the thing. We don't know what Tolkien
will say
about adaptations. We get to actually see how George feels about his. I think that's even if it's dissenting, I think it's still important to take it in, and we can have our own opinions. We can still love the show. And I think he also still loves the show. I think he just has some things.
He wants to clarify. Yeah. He's
a little bit annoyed.
Right. Yeah.
I do, however, also want to bring up the fact that he does drop the hammer a little bit on the very, very small percentage of people who I just love to drop the hammer on too. They're not dragons, they're wyvern. No one cares. Okay. No one cares. Okay. Because you always get those comments sometimes, and it's like 1% of people who are actually like, no one cares. The average viewer who watches this, of the millions of people, do not care about the difference between a dragon and a wyvern. Also, if they want to call it a dragon, that's what, if that thing showed up right in our world right now, people would say there's a freaking dragon.
Yeah.
They would not say, that's a wyvern. No, it's just because also, just real quick, if I were to create my own universe and I want to call them dragons in it, I can't. Like, you can create however you want. Right.
Yep.
Zombies are not exclusively that there's zombies in this type of thing and zombies in this type. I mean, they can all be different.
That's wild.
Get them, Matt.
I love it. I always see those comments and I always just roll my eyes and I'm just like, dude, no one cares.